Hello again. I am Jared Case, curator of film exhibitions at the Dryden Theater and the George Eastman Museum, coming to you from my office here at the Dryden Theater. We have been able to come in and do some work on site, but unfortunately we are not able to open the Dryden just yet. We've been doing a lot of work preparing, getting things ready for that time when it does come, but because we haven't been able to open, there's some programming that's been sort of left behind. I'm bringing you streaming recommendations based on that programming that you might have seen had we been able to welcome you back to the Dryden Theater, particularly a triptych of films that I had planned to be in conversation with the Gathering Clouds photography exhibition that's going on. It's on view at the museum here until January 3rd, 2021, and I definitely recommend that you come see that. What the Gathering Clouds exhibition does is it explores photography, the history of photography in relation to clouds, not only as a physical problem for early photography, but also the symbology of clouds and the reason that we capture them as images and what they mean across cultures and across time, in addition to the fact that we sort of just take them for granted. They're with us all the time, but we rarely look up to admire them. So previously I had talked to you about Solaris, the 1972 Andrei Tarkovsky film. Today I'm going to talk to you about The Doors from 1991, directed by Oliver Stone. And this is, of course, Stone's look at the famous rock band from the 1960s, but more than the band, although we do get some material of them forming and how they got together, it really is Stone's look at Jim Morrison. And it seems like he has a kinship with this character of Morrison that he creates. And Morrison's obsession not only with death, but with what exists beyond the physical realm. And we see this very early in the film in a flashback when Morrison is a boy and his family is traveling across the desert in their car, and there's been an accident. And as Morrison's looking out the window, he sees a Native American man on the side of the road, and he appears to be dying. As the car drives off into the desert, we see in the background these huge John Fordian clouds dominating the landscape. And this seems to be, from the film, a representation not of a barrier like it is in Solaris, but more of a door or a veil. You can see the clouds, but you can't see what's behind the clouds. They're thick enough to obscure what's there, which is analogous to the inability to see beyond the physical world. So Morrison is very obsessed with death and what lies beyond as he relates it to the man that he saw dying on the side of the road, and he explores that through his music and his art and through his performance and, of course, what he does off stage as well. But he also explores what might be unknowable to the physical world by expanding the mind through altering drugs and trying to see visions of either what lays beyond death or outside the physical realm. So this theme of clouds shows up often throughout the film, whether it's Morrison and his girlfriend, played by Meg Ryan, who are standing on a rooftop and having a deep conversation looking out over the city, or if it has to do with Morrison taking the band on an excursion out to the desert where they take some mind-altering substances and try to get a greater knowledge of the world and what lays beyond. Of course, it deals with these real-life events as dramatized by Stone, and as Morrison gets more and more obsessed with death and what lays beyond, or with this knowledge of what lays beyond the physical world, his actions become very erratic, particularly to those close to him and outside of his knowledge of the obsession, and he becomes erratic and he starts to abuse more alcohol and more drugs, and he puts himself in dangerous situations that put his life at risk. And this is part of that sort of cool, on the exterior it looks like, he has such knowledge that he couldn't care what is going on around him. It's that aloofness that made him really sort of a legend of a rock star. And of course, he died very young, and the film goes into that and sort of the legendary status that Morrison retains for that. But we're looking at it today primarily because of this cloud imagery and what it represents and how Stone uses it. So I recommend that you go see that. If you haven't seen it in a while, there is some really great filmmaking within the film, whether it's the editing and the cinematography and the way they come together, and Stone's use of color in some of these scenes, as well as his evocation of that era in California of the 1960s. So it's actually a really good film. Stone is a fascinating subject that perhaps at some point in time we can go into more detail in here at the Dryden Theater. You can rent the doors on many of the typical suspects, whether it's Google Play or it's Amazon or it's Apple. And we hope that you come back for another recommendation. We've got one more to talk about in relation to the Clouds exhibition, and there will be more recommendations and more conversations upcoming. So please come back, and we'll see you next time.